그렇다면 그런 부분들은 변수가 있겠지만 내부에서 하드웨어적으로 운영하시는 부분들, 예를 들어서 에픽게임즈의 최근 그 프로젝트들 보면 대부분 데스크탑을 여러 대를 연결해서 이 하드웨어를 운영을 하셨는데, 사실 뭐 알고 계시겠지만 디스가이스 XR 시스템 같은 경우에 온전히 하나의 어떤 하드웨어 시스템으로 지금 프로덕트 아예 개발이 돼서 나왔거든요. 지금 그러면 이걸 아예 하나로 묶어서 하드웨어 시스템으로 운용하실 생각이 있으신지, 아니면 여전히 계속 지금 에픽에서 지금 테스트하고 계신 것처럼 여러 개의 데스크탑을 연결하는 방식으로 생각하고 계신지, 이런 부분들 물어보고 싶습니다.
Well, I mean, like Epic is basically we're a gaming company, software company, tools company, and so we're we've built a software that will drive an LED wall, right? But how you want to track the camera for us doesn't matter. Like we have a way to take the camera data into Unreal and have the camera driven by it. And so for us, we try to support as many different camera tracking as possible. And so it kind of really comes down to, what the individual companies want to use, so there isn't any specific one that we're trying to push towards. We're trying to support.
I mean, you meant, just to jump in there on the Disguise XR front, because that's something we're testing, because Streamliner, who we work with on our LED wall stuff, they use extensive use of Disguise, and it's a really powerful system. And I think so that's a good example of, on the right project, Disguise XR might work wonderfully. If there's video playback in there as well as Unreal Engine and everything else, it might be an excellent solution. If it's just a solution where if it's just a system where it's pure in-camera VFX, we might just use a display inside Unreal Engine, because there's some functionality in there that maybe isn't quite available in Disguise XR. So we use both those systems, and we're flexible in our world. So I think that's maybe the back to what Sean's saying. I think there's so many options, and it's so early in the virtual production. Well, virtual production itself has been around forever, but in this new LED wall world, and with live camera tracking and seeing the frustum change, every 3 months we see some new technologies appearing, and it's just worth exploring them all and keeping on top of them, I think.
네, 그러면 지금 하드웨어 쪽에서 한 가지만 더 질문드리겠습니다. LED 월 같은 경우에 지금 LED 패널은 현재 뭐 양산품, 뭐 중국 쪽이나 대만 쪽에서 양산품을 들여오거나, 또는 내부에서 실제로 디자인 단계에서부터 만드는 방법이 있을 텐데요. 이 LED 패널의 디자인 단계에서부터 지금 버추얼 프로덕션을 하시면서 염두에 두시는지, 아니면 지금 단계는 양산형 패널들을 이용해서 그냥 구성을 한 다음에 버추얼 스튜디오로 운영하는 걸 생각하고 계신지, 이런 부분들 좀 물어보고 싶습니다. 레스데요.
So we have a whole bunch of panels that are in New Zealand, and we're using those because we had them and they're here. We're continually testing. It feels like there's always a new set of panels coming in for testing. We're actually trying to work out which new ones to kind of standardize on. We're waiting for I've got 12 new panels, should be arriving in New Zealand any day now, to test to see where we're going. I think since LED walls have become so popular, it feels like there's a lot of different LED panels have kind of become, LED panels and drivers for those have become available and are being discussed. And there's like row panels and Black Pearl, which still used in Mandalorian, or seem to be the standard that everyone that I'm talking to seems to be kind of using, but there's obviously new ones coming out all the time. So mostly, I think they would say we're using the ones we have, because we've had them for a while, but we're looking to invest in more, and at the moment we're testing a few different ones. So we're not involved in the design process of them, but we're talking closely to the manufacturers, understanding the color reproduction, and when we get them, we stick a spectrophotometer and things in front of them, and see how they perform, what their gamut is, and how, when we increase the brightness, how does that affect the color reproduction. And there's a whole stack of testing that we do on the panels, and then we get a whole bunch of cameras and point them at the panels and check how do they look at different refresh rates, how do they look when you're this far away from them with the aperture set a certain way. And I think it's a key thing is just to test them, because LED panels look magical when they work, but when they're lit correctly and they're set up correctly. But it's if you're not careful, it's very easy to just make it look like a 1940s rear projection movie. So yeah, we've done a lot of testing on that, but I think we're not involved in the design, but we're testing all the ones that we can get hold of, and often which is harder and harder because everyone wants to build LED walls right now. So it's LED panels are flying all over the world. So yeah, I think testing is the key. Would you say, Sean? You've probably seen many in the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as an example, what I would add to that is if you take a look at an LED panel and you look at the dot pitch in an LED panel, depending on how tight the dot pitch is going to depend on how you're going to use the panel. So, for instance, you might have lower dot pitch panels above you because you're using them more for lighting, but the ones that you're actually going to be shooting on, you might want a finer dot pitch because you want to get more detail, because the product, if it's not very fine, you can only get some detail in there, and you can only get so close to it, and you can only focus, like not going to focus directly on it, but it's going to be hard for you to get really high res images on it if it's not, the panels themselves aren't high enough resolution. So that there's that's a perfect example of where you're going to have to make some decisions around, if I'm going to buy these panels, it's like Alistair was saying, you want to test on them, like get one or two, and then look through the camera on them and see, how close can I get to the camera? How close can I focus to the camera? Because at this point, we don't really suggest you try to focus on the LED panels right now, because if you do,
라인이 끊긴 거 같네요.
Looks like we lost Sean.
네.
I can just finish the last bit he was saying there in terms of the panels. Yeah, the testing is so important, because if you focus on the panels, you will see the grid, especially if you're shooting in 4K or something like that. So different panels are useful for different things, and I don't think it's as simple as like low-res panels can go on the ceiling, because if you've got a reflection, you'll start to see the dots of those panels. So you might have to start diffusing them or moving them further away. Sean's back.